Troublesome times are here, filling men's hearts with fear. Freedom we all hold dear. Now as I say, open your heart to God, slave to the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. May you believe there, trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise, righteously in the sky, going where no one dies, heavenward bound. Troubles will soon be o'er, happy forevermore, when we meet on that shore, freedom of hair, rising up in the sky, telling this world goodbye. Home we live with fly, glory to share. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet there too. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise, righteous being the sky, going where no one dies, heavenward bound. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet there too. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise, righteous being the sky, going where no one dies, heavenward bound. Please stand, please.
It's not my fault. All right. I should listen to him better. All right. But anyways, Honduras team, wear your t-shirts tonight, and everyone plan to be back here at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna in about 30, 40 minutes try to cram everything I can about the trip to Honduras this year in, but you're going to hear from Craig. You're not going to hear from the team. Tonight you get to hear from the team and not from Craig. So that's why Sunday nights are always better than the Sunday morning presentations. Bring finger foods, because it's better if we look at pictures and eat at the same time. Encourage everyone to be back at 5 o'clock this evening, and we're going to be over in the Family Life Center. So this morning I do get to speak to the congregation about our trip to Honduras, and I always look forward to this Sunday. I wish we could always pull it together faster so that we could talk to you while it's still hot. We've been back now for almost 6 weeks, but we did still want to make it a presentation to the congregation, because y'all are amazing on how you support this trip and many other works that we do as a congregation here. And so this is a joint effort that we do. This is not something that just the team does. We're the ones who get the privilege of being able to go on the trip, but it's the congregation that goes to Honduras. And we've been going to Honduras now as a congregation for about 8 years. And that has been a wonderful experience for us as a congregation, for us to do that. This year's theme, we have a theme every year. This year's theme was extraordinary. And the point that we were trying to impress upon ourselves and upon the people who went on the trip this year was that doing things like going to Honduras for a couple weeks a year in the world in which we live is something that is extraordinary. That God looks at and God smiles when people do things like taking 2 weeks out of their year and going and making themselves totally available to Him and His work. And so we talked about that throughout the trip. And when I thought about that, I went back to Webster, not the one on my shelf. I actually Googled it. But I went back to Webster and looked up the word extraordinary, and here's what Webster says. Webster says that extraordinary is remarkable, exceptional, unusual, amazing, astounding, marvelous, incredible, and outstanding. Those are just some words that help to describe what we're trying to communicate to the people on the trip this year, that what we do in Honduras, that's what it is. It is something that is remarkable, that is something that is unusual, that it is something that is outstanding. And it's really how we believe that God wants us as people to focus our lives as we think about how to serve Him and put the work of His kingdom into our lives. I've got about 40 pictures I'm going to try to get through this morning, and so you're going to get more pictures and less preaching, but I do have some points I want to make along the way. This is the team. There were 16 of us from Highlands, and that went. Michelle Marie, a lot of you know Michelle Marie. We counted her as one of us. She's actually a member at Concord Street in Orlando, or was until she moved to Daytona Beach. But I can't keep up with her. She's living right now. But so that's why when you asked me, there were 17 of us. I had to logistically get her there, and so I counted her as one of us. But there's the team at 4 o'clock in the morning on June 13th, 4 o'clock in the morning. We do this every year. We get up and get there, and Joe's not here this morning because they're under the weather, but Joe appreciates that because he drives the bus and gets us there every year, and he likes that we give him plenty of time to get us there and to find that secret gate to get the bus into, and we appreciate him. But there's the team, and that's what we looked like when we took off on June the 13th. This year, what I want to do before we get into the trip itself, I want to introduce you to some folks. Because there's folks in Honduras that make this trip possible. We just don't go and land there and get the work done. There is a whole team of folks that make it possible for us to do our work in Honduras, and it's all headed by this man here. A lot of you know who he is, but this is Tim Hines. Tim Hines is the president of Torch Missions, and he leads our week that we go to, our 2 weeks that we go to Honduras. Tim has been working in Honduras as a missionary on and off, and for about 6 months out of every year for the last 20 years. When he's not there, he's the preacher at the North Point Church of Christ in a small town in Louisiana that pays him full salary for him to preach half a year. What a deal. John, you got to work on that one with us. But the other half is spent in Honduras, so there's the deal. This is Tim Hines, a great man of faith. I could do a sermon on Tim, but wanted to introduce you to him, and when he's in town, I hope that we get to hear from him. This is his wife, Marcia. Marcia is all the logistics behind the trip, so whenever we showed up somewhere on time and they were expecting us, it was because of her. She does a wonderful job of taking care of all the logistics. She books all of our flights. She arranges for everything that you can imagine to be able to get a group of 30, 35 people all working together for a couple of weeks. And so Marcia, some of you all know Marcia. Marcia's been around Central Florida for years. She's normally at one of the desks at the Spiritual Growth Workshop, now the Equip Conference, and at SunQuest, but she's now traded that hat for this. And she's Tim's wife and working with him half a year in Honduras. For the first time, whoops. Go back one picture, please. Oh, all right, I'm going to go 2. There we go. All right. This, for the first time, us going there, we actually worked with a full-time missionary. Just coincidentally, there is blood relation here. This is Dalton Hines. Dalton Hines is the son of Tim Hines, and he and his wife, Jen, who you're going to be seeing in just a minute, they have relocated to Honduras full time. They moved down there in November of last year as full-time missionaries in Honduras. They've not been back to the States yet. They're hoping to get back here next month. But they have given their lives to full-time missionary work in Honduras. And they didn't do it at a convenient time in their life. Notice the age of their children. This is Aiden, Asher, and Alex. Aiden is 4. Now work your math down. But wonderful couple. This is Dalton, and this is his wife Jen. And they were just a joy to work with. And they basically hosted us because one of the things that they do when they're there, they actually now are the, I forget the right title to put on it, but they're over a retreat center that we stayed at this year in Santa Ana, and are doing a wonderful job there, along with working with the church there at Santa Ana, and I'll speak more about that hopefully if we have time later on. But there is Dalton and Jen. Now, unfortunately, I need you to go back the 2 pictures that I need to have the picture of. All right, this is Gail Davidson. Gail Davidson, we have been working with since we started going to Honduras as a congregation, us at Highlands. We've known Gail. Belinda and I have known Gail for years, but we as a congregation have known Gail for the last 8 years. Gail runs a free medical clinic in Santa Ana, and let me emphasize, free medical clinic. She has been able to work such great resources out of not just the churches, but also other agencies here in the United States that she is able to offer free medical care to the people of Santa Ana and the villages around Santa Ana. And on an average day, they see in the neighborhood of 80 to 100 patients that come through in Santa Ana. And they have a full clinic with a pharmacy, a doctor, a nurse. They're currently recruiting a dentist to be able to bring a dentist in. But Gail is who does our medical clinics. Wherever we go in the villages that we go to, she'll run a medical clinic there on site while we are running doing our work. And so wanted you to meet Gail. Right next to her is Allison Boer. Allison Boer was this year's intern with Gail, and I tell you what, Allison was a different kind of intern. In past, Gail has had interns, and all they would do is medical stuff, which is fine. That was what they were there for. Allison worked circles around us. She was an amazing intern for Gail this year, and so that's who is in the picture with her there. And so, all right, let's see. All right. This is Cesar. Cesar is Honduran young man. I call him a young man. He's now in his 30s, who has a wife and 2 children. And Cesar, during the summers, works for Torch Missions. He does construction the rest of the year, but during the summer he works for Torch Missions. And all he does is he helps us Americans who don't know how to work with tools build houses. And so you might remember if Cindy, you remember Cesar. Cesar is the one who had a worksite accident several years ago, and Cindy and Belinda and I were trapped inside the house with him because we hadn't cut the door out yet. And Cindy rendered incredible medical care so that there he is back up on the roof. But that's Cesar. Cesar was basically our lone Honduran dedicated worker this year, and we were doing 2 houses a day. So imagine how hard he worked. This is Norland. Along with him, Norland is our bus driver. I don't know what to say about our bus drivers until you get to Honduras, and then you'll understand what I'm saying. They take bus drivers where I'd be afraid to take my car. And it's not because they're making us unsafe. He is the most safe driver. And again, I've been to Honduras about 16 years now, never been in an accident, never felt in danger in a bus. And so, but he's our bus driver, and that's his lone job for us. He keeps us safe on the road so we don't have to worry about it. And once you get past that first ride, you don't think about it anymore. It's just that first ride. Norland doesn't do this solely. Norland and his brother Marlon saved up their money over the years in driving buses to where they were able to open up a store that sells meats and cheeses down in Tegucigalpa. And so Norland would go down after every night back down to Tegucigalpa and do his part of the job at the shop, and then early in the morning he'd be back up at Santa Ana to drive us, and that's not a small task. It is a 45-mile drive from Tegucigalpa to Santa Ana where we stayed, and they don't have our roads. They have much better roads than they used to, but not only is it mountainous, but it is also not the quality of roads we have, and he did that back and forth every single day while we were there, did a wonderful job. This is, standing next to Tim there, the smaller man there, that's Dennis. Dennis is the preacher at the church at Santa Ana. And you're going to see the church at Santa Ana in just a minute. Dennis has done a wonderful job with that church. It was a struggling church when he came there about 4 years ago. It is now having its second edition built onto it because they've blown out the walls. And you'll see that when we get to Sunday in our trip. They've got a building where the children meet. They're under actually completed construction. I found out last night completed construction is a building where the youth have their classes, and then the main worship facility where they have their classes and their worship. But that's Dennis, and he's doing a wonderful job. He lives on site. And the ministry that's being done in Santa Ana, like in many of the churches in Honduras, is just amazing how the church is exploding. But I wanted to introduce him to Dennis because he's an important part of our work there. This is Cisco. A lot of you have asked in years past what kind of evangelism gets done while you all are doing the work that you're doing there. Well, we have Cisco on our trip to do exactly that at all of our work sites and at all of our medical clinics. Cisco is our evangelist and Bible class teacher, and he is fluent in Spanish, and he is so well received by the people. They'll listen to him talk all day, and those of you who've been to Honduras, you know the energy of Cisco, but there's Cisco. And last, on my left is Yvonne. Yvonne was our interpreter this year. One of the things that Torch Missions does, Torch Missions provides us with an interpreter at every year when we go, so that if we get in a position where we're trying to communicate with someone and we can't, we have someone who speaks both languages, and you know what interpreters do. And Yvonne lives with us, as all the interpreters do. They live with us for the 2 weeks that we're there, and it's a great experience for them. It's a great experience for us, besides just a little bit of pay, and I want to emphasize just a little bit of pay, their benefit is they get to be around people who speak English all the time so they can work on their English. So there's the players. That's what it takes for us to get to Honduras on one of our mission trips, and all the logistics that need to be done, and we're grateful for each one of them. All right. We got there on Thursday, got ourselves moved in up at Santa Ana, and then Friday morning we hit it immediately. One of the things that we've always done, because we want to expose everyone to it so they know what they've gotten themselves into, is that we build 2 houses on the very first day with a bunch of folks who haven't picked up a hammer in years. We build 2 houses on the first day. This is one of the work sites as we're putting up one of the houses. If you're not familiar with the houses, these houses are 16 by 16 wood structures with a door and a window and a floor. And what I want you to hear as you think about that, because you think, wow, that's not much. What does that work out to? About 356 square feet. And they're going to be putting somewhere between 4 and 7 people into this house after we finish building it. That this is a vast improvement, gives them housing stability that they did not have before we built them this house. So one of the main things that Torch Mission does is that we build these houses. These houses last. I mean, I've been telling you in the past that they last somewhere between 10 and 12 years, it's amazing how long these houses last. They last longer than the 10 or 12 years. And these houses cost us, who sponsor them, about $1,600 a year to build. $1,600 to bring housing stability to a family that did not have it. But first day we built 2 houses. The one that you see being built here was for the Hector family. Don Hector is the only working member of the family, and he works down in Tegucigalpa. And so that drive I was telling you that Norland takes, he makes every day down. Well, he doesn't drive. He hops on a bus and is carried down to Tegucigalpa at 4 a.m. every morning, and he hops back on a bus at the end of his shift and is back home at somewhere around 7:30 in the evening. That he does that 6 days a week to support his family. And his wife, Donna, she had thyroid cancer, which is what set this family back financially so badly. So because of that, she is unable to work. She does small jobs around the village and makes tortillas to make a little bit of extra money. They have 2 children, Gina and David, who will be living with them in this house. This is what one of the houses look like finished, and it's amazing the difference that the houses make. So that was our Friday. On Saturday, we went to a children's home, children's village called Didasco. This is the second year that we've gone to Didasco. For those of you who know our store, you probably know that it's not coincidental that we go to Didasco. There's a couple of boys there that we get to see every year. But we get to go to Didasco. The children in Didasco are anywhere from 4 years old up to 18 years old. And they are wards of the state. They are children that have either been orphaned because of the death of their parents, or they've been abandoned for whatever reason. A lot of them have been picked up in downtown Tegucigalpa because they have been abandoned down there, and then the state takes them and they place them in these orphanages throughout the countryside in Honduras. But that's where we go on our Saturdays, and where we went on Saturday, and we try to do a little bit of work for Didasco while we're there. But the main thing that we do while we're there on this day is we recover from the previous day's work. We play with the children, and it's a joyful day. Getting to play with the children, but as I said, we do a little bit of work. If you need some paint done around the church building, we have a preacher that is a pretty good painter. That was our Saturday at Didasco. On Sunday, we went to church in Santa Ana. This is the Iglesia de Cristo in Santa Ana, and it was exciting to see that church building as filled as it was this Sunday morning. Now, I know we're there, but look at the number of people. Our team was only 32 people this year, so we're not filling in this crowd. This is all folks from the village of Santa Ana and they're not coming to see us. This church is doing an amazing work in Santa Ana. Picture of one of the children's classes. This is one of 2 of the children's classes that were taking place at the same time as the main worship. So that picture I just showed you of the worship didn't have any of the kids in it. They don't have room, and so they take the kids out and they take the teens out, and the children have their worship in here. The teens have their worship here and one other room, and then the teens have their worship actually right now. Well, prior to their building being built out on the property. That's and then after church, we fed them dinner today. One of the things that they do, they do feed them. They feed the children every Sunday after worship. They do that. Lots of different reasons, but the main reason is because malnutrition is such a problem, not just in Honduras, in many third world countries, but malnutrition is such a problem that for the sake of the health of the children, they provide them this one meal a week that they know where the meal is coming from, and the family doesn't have to figure out how to cover it financially. So on Monday, we built 2 more houses, as you see the work on this house was built for the Garcias. It's a family of 5, Narina and her 4 children, and one of their sons, Jonathan, and I'm going to mispronounce the disease that he has, but he has osteogenesis. Osteogenesis is the disease that makes your bones brittle, and so he is highly susceptible to his bones breaking. In fact, we don't have the picture here. I think there's going to be a picture in tonight's slideshow that'll have it. But we have a picture of him in an arm cast because he's recently broken his arm, and so his arm had to be put in a cast. There are rods in his arm, and the rods were coming out. His body was rejecting the rods. Imagine that. And not just imagine that if you were living here. Imagine that living in that circumstances without a home. That's who we built this house for. Was Narina and her 4 children. So we did this on many nights. What's going on at this table here is that they are preparing for the clinics we're going to be holding. We at every one of the clinics we have a pharmacy where we give out vitamins and basic medicines, and so what they're doing here is they're sorting the medicines out in such a way that we can give them out very efficiently, because at a typical clinic where we are for about 6 hours, they will see anywhere from 100 to 200 people. So on our evenings, there was a group of folks that would gather around the table in the back of the cafeteria, and they'd sort all the medicine for the next day, and we had a great time together. I got to play with the kids while they did this. So I had a lot of fun. All right, let's see. I wanted to show you this picture. We showed you this spot last year in a village called Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan was a village that was cut off from basic needs because they were a village built on the wrong side of a river that had no bridge. And as a result, the way that we got across was that we walked on this plank, with all of our tools and our backpacks and everything else that we needed for the day, we would walk over it, and that's how they got back and forth, was on this plank that you walked across, and then you'd walk up into the mountains, so last year we began building a bridge so that trucks could get back and forth across and back to the village, so they could get basic things like water out of the water trucks, and other basic needs that they were in need of. And here's the bridge completed, built by Torch Missions, we got to see trucks. Oh, by the way, yes, we saw trucks go across it. The bus would have crossed that. Good news, it made it. But no, I mean this is a safe engineered bridge that passed all the inspections, and just really thrilled to see something that we helped on complete like this, and has changed the life in a village. It also changed our build for the day, because instead of us carrying our stuff, we drove to our work sites and got dropped off. And if you carried our tools, that was a wonderful day. We at Good Samaritan, we built a house this day, and we had a medical clinic. This is what a medical clinic looks like. A medical clinic is typically run if there is not a community center, and don't think the YMCA, but if there's not a community center or a church building where we can hold the medical clinic, they hold it outdoors in the open air. And that's what we've always done at Good Samaritan, and it's amazing how many people they saw that day as they ran the medical clinic, and many of our people participated in that. We also built this house this day, we built this house for Jose Ordonez and his wife and son, again, it's amazing what a difference it's going to make in their lives, because right now, well, prior to this, they had moved from place to place until it would get to the point where they couldn't afford the rent where they were staying, and so they'd have to move back in with family and save up, and then they'd move back out and stay someplace until they couldn't afford the rent anymore, and then move back in with family, and that was their life. That's how they handled housing for years prior to this house being built for them. It is amazing, the husband, how he reacted to this house. I thought he was a Honduran worker from the village that came and helped us build the house. It is just great when the owner of the house, the person who's going to get the house, works alongside you all day long. Doesn't even tell you that it's his house. He's just jumping in and working, and all of a sudden at the end of the day you find out, oh, this house is for you. It was an amazing day. That day. Okay, on Thursday, we went to the hospital. We go to the hospital every year. You all know we go to the hospital because us as a congregation, and some of you beautiful ladies have headed this work, and it's great, make the baby bags all year long for us to give out. And so this is the day the baby bags got given out. While the ladies go back into the maternity wards, and pass out the bags, the rest of us, we go up into the children's wards and give them a little joy and pass out Bibles and everything else that we can do to touch them with the love of Jesus while they're in the hospital. This is an open ward. This is how they do it. I mean, unless you are really, really, really sick and contagious, you don't have a room for yourself at a hospital. You're staying in wards. But I do want you to know, I mean, it's amazing how Hospital Escuela it's the largest hospital in Central America, and the advances that they've made in medicine in the 15 years, 16 years that I've been there are just amazing. Here's the group that went up into the maternity wards. You see them holding the, holding the bags that are passed out, there's a couple pictures. Like, we couldn't pick which picture to show you of one of the babies that were blessed by one of the bags that were given that day. Here's one of the bags being given out by a lady by the name of Rebecca. She's the wife of the preacher at the other church that was there when we were there working together. We went with 115 bags, I believe, and we gave out 106 bags. Last year we gave out 90, and this year was 106. And part of the reason why it was only 106 is because we ran out of time, and so the other 9 have already been given out through the Santa Ana Medical Clinic, but that's what happened there. After that, we went to a place called Mi Esperanza. I don't know if you can see her. A lot of y'all recognize the woman in the very back of this picture. It's the best picture that I had of Lori Connell. A lot of y'all know Mark and Lori Connell. Mark and Lori Connell were members at Highlands years back. They picked up and moved to Honduras as full-time missionaries back in the late 90s and have been there ever since. And Lori wanted a ministry of her own when she was there, and the need that she wanted to meet was to provide education to and empowerment to women that are living in these villages, because You go to village after village after village, and what you find is that living in these villages, majority living in these villages are women with their children. Their husbands, wanting to provide for their families, have gone down into Tegucigalpa trying to find work. Unfortunately, too many of them got down to Tegucigalpa and found work and found another life, and left the wife and the children up on the mountains. So this school, Mi Esperanza, which has now graduated over 150 graduates in technology and in sewing and in secretarial and in beautician schooling. They've graduated over 150 women now into this program. In fact, one of them now is a co-director of this Mi Esperanza through her education, and so wonderful. And so we go there every year. And last day we went to a village called Mateo, and we ran our final medical clinic, this just gives you an idea of the number of people that show up for a medical clinic when we run a medical clinic. We built a house, and actually we built this house for the youth minister of the church at Mateo. Mateo, they can't afford a youth minister. They can't afford housing for a youth minister, but they thought they felt the need, and so they said, if you come, we can provide you a house. Well, that house that got provided was actually going to be provided by us, but that's the house. And the last thing we did, we built our second ever chicken coop. And we told you the story about the chicken coop many years ago when we built that one. But what we're hoping here, and it's something new that we're working on, is that if we build chicken coops for folks and get them the chickens, it gives them not only food because you got the eggs, but it also gives them income because they can sell the eggs. So we built a chicken coop that day. I say we. Shandia was our representative from our team that was building fortunately she's not here to grimace at me as I tell you. That was harder than building a house. All right, let's see. I'm about out of time, so I'm gonna just ask about these pictures later. I'll tell you what they are. But this was our Honduras team and the work that we did. Every trip is different. Every trip is good. What I want you to know is that this it stands out to me. We did a couple different things this year that we've never done before. We took a 4-year-old with us. And I tell you what, and I'm going to tell you stories tonight if I've got time about Trent. Trent did as good a work as anyone on the team, in his way, in the things that he could do, and he had a wonderful time. I don't know if we planned it this way, but Trent was mine and Belinda's roommate for the week, and so it just turned out that way. I just can't say enough about this year's team. The one thing that us leaders all sat down and talked about on the last night, it was me and Sean, who's the preacher from the other congregation that went with us, and Tim Hines and Dalton, and we were all sitting around and we were all marveling at how we had a trip with no drama. Y'all know what I mean. We had no drama. And you know who normally brings drama into a trip? It isn't the kids. It's the adults. And we were so grateful we didn't have to deal with that this year. It's hard to deal with drama with adults, but it was a wonderful trip. And I want to say that the people here from Highlands who went on this trip, they were extraordinary. And I want to commend each one of them in front of you all. We, as a group, we built 7 houses. Now, as Highlands, we donated 6 houses. And you saw 3 of them up there that we got built while we were there. Because of the size of our team and the number of build days that we had, not all the houses got built before we left. 3 got built after we left, and I'll be showing you the pictures of the 3 that got built after we left tonight at our presentation. But know that Highlands donated 6 houses this year, and over the 8 years that we've been going, we have now, as a congregation, provided housing to 40 families. That's amazing. That we have changed the lives of 40 families through our congregation and through these houses, and that doesn't include everything else that we do. And so I wanted to thank you for that too. Closing thought. I have longer than I'm not going to take my entire everything I've written down here, but a closing thought. It struck me this year, maybe more than any other time, not on the trip, earlier in the year, it struck me about how, and I think it was Randall that kept on saying this as he preached for us. He kept on saying, the people in the Bible didn't know that they were going to be people in the Bible. They were just people. They were people who made themselves available to God. And through them making themselves available to God with their lives, they did extraordinary things that we still remember today. I wanted to talk today about Abraham and Hannah. I want to talk today about Joseph and Esther. I wanted to talk today about Moses and Mary and Elijah, but I don't have time. But I hope I bring them back into your memory and the things that they did that we still remember to this day, all because when God gave them the call, when God said, "Are you ready to live your life for me and not for yourself?" they said, yes. And as a result, they did extraordinary things that changed the course of the world. James chapter 5, verse 17. There's this little phrase in there about Elijah that has now been a phrase that has become a part of how I am approaching life. He says about Elijah, he was human just like you. You know what James just did? James compared Craig to Elijah. And I'm like, no. Elijah was this great prophet of God who stood up on Mount Carmel and in that great contest, and who caused it so that it did not rain for 3.5 years because of the sins of Israel, and who God thought so much of that he didn't let him die. Instead, he took him up to heaven in a fiery chariot. And James is telling us, no, Elijah's no different than you. The only thing that Elijah did was that Elijah made himself available to me. And through him making himself available to me, Elijah did extraordinary things. And I'm fairly certain that if we ever had a chance to sit down with any of these people, Abraham or Hannah, Joseph or Esther, Moses or Mary, or even Elijah, and ask them, do you have any regrets because of the decision that you made to follow God and to give your life over to Him? They would say, no, not one regret. And what I want to be able to do 30, 40 years from now, because I plan on going to Honduras until then, 30 or 40 years from now, I want people to, if someone comes to ask me and says, Craig, do you have any regrets about living your life like this? I want to be able to say no. And they're really, I don't say that about me, just, I'm saying that because I want each of you all to ask yourself the same question. Are you living your life in such a way right now that if someone were to ask you 20 years from now, do you have any regrets? about how you lived your life back then? Do you have any regrets about the choices that you made, about how you spent your time and how you spent your money and what you did with that house? And do you have any regrets? I hope your answer is no. But I can tell you this. The only way that you can guarantee that that answer is going to be no is if your time and your talents and your money and your homes and everything else that God has blessed with you has been given to Him to be used for His purpose. And then you can say, no regrets. Blinn and I started going to Honduras 16 years ago now. We think. It could have been 17, but and every year someone asks, are you going to go back next year? Why do you keep going? Why in the face of all that's going on there, do you keep going back? Because I believe that's what God has called us to take the gospel of Jesus Christ to people who are in much the same situation that Jesus was in. As he ministered on the earth. It's hard for us, last thought, and I'm done. It's hard for us to imagine in the setting in which we live. Because we think that our setting in which we're living today is ordinary. That my middle class American life is what everyone should be living. And if they were just approach life the way that I approach life, then they could. Reality is, we call Honduras a third world country, but the people in Honduras live like 2/3 of the people in the world. 2/3 of the people in the world live on $7 a day or less. That's ordinary. That's normal. What we live is not normal. And so the question for us to ask ourselves is, why did God choose for Craig to be born into this extraordinary situation where I have blessings that are 100 times more than 2/3 the world have? And what does God want me to do with all of these blessings that He has given me and has made me steward over? I've come to the conclusion that God did not give me these to spend on myself, but instead to be used for the furtherance of His kingdom. I hope that's the conclusion you've come to also. And as a congregation, I love the work that we do, and I encourage us to continue to be as sacrificial as we are, because we are making a difference for the kingdom of God 2 weeks at a time. And what a blessing that is. If you're here today and you need to respond to the invitation for baptism or for prayer, why don't you come forward right now as we stand and sing this song.
Jesus is mine.